In this series of videos we'll take you from start to finish in making and binding your own books. For the first part of this project, you will need paper of your choice. It can be plain, lined or even pre-printed with a design of your choice. I'm using plain A4 120 GSM paper. You can use standard copier paper, which is 80 GSM, but I do think it's a little bit light for this purpose, and when it's glued, it can easily warp. You'll also need 2 sheets of a heavier weight paper, which will be used as your end papers. I chose red, but you can have any colour or design you want. You'll need some PVA glue, a brush, a rule, a pencil, a bone folder, a craft knife, and thread. This is a wax thread which is used in bookbinding and jewellery making. This one is quite thick. You can also use regular thread, darning thread or embroidery thread, or even fine crochet cotton. You can also wax your own thread. You'll also need a large needle. I like to use a curved needle. Some people prefer a straight needle. Whichever you choose, just make sure that the eye is large enough to take the thread that you're using. You will also need something to press your book. I'm using 2 pieces of wood which are slightly bigger than A5 and 2 clamps. If you have a book press, then that's ideal, but not many people have them. If you have neither, then you can press your book under other heavy books. You're also going to need an awl, which can be found at hardware stores or craft shops, and an old softback book. We are going to pierce the pages with the awl, and the old telephone directory is ideal to cushion the paper and protect your work surface from damage. For this book, I'm using 40 sheets of paper, and I'm going to individually fold each one in half. It's important to be quite precise, and I like to fold them up against the edge of my fingers to make sure the edge is lined up. Then just line up the corners together and crease. I'm going to reinforce the crease with the bone folder. The tighter the crease, the better. And I'm going to do this with all 40 sheets. Some people fold several sheets at once, but I find a better result is achieved by folding and creasing them individually. Now I have my 40 sheets folded and creased with the bone folder. I'm going to create my signatures. Signatures are made by nesting sheets of paper one inside the other. I'm nesting together 4 sheets in each signature, which will give me 10 signatures in total. I'm jogging the signatures to ensure the edges are neat and even. The next thing to do is to mark up one of the signatures. I'm finding the centre point. As this is an A4 piece of paper, I know that it's 21 centimeters wide, and the centre is 10.5 centimeters. Then I'm going to mark the signature at 3 centimeter intervals either side of the centre mark, and this is where we'll be stitching. I'm going to place that back on top of the pile of signatures and using a straight edge, I'm scoring up at each of the marks with a pencil to mark all of the signatures at once. It's important that once we have these marks that the signatures are kept in the same order. I'm placing the old phone directory down, taking the first signature and opening it up, making sure the pages are aligned, and I'm using the awl to pierce through the paper on the marks. Making sure I keep the signatures in the same order, I'm going to turn it over and take the next signature. And repeat the same steps. If you find some of the marks are so faint you can't see them, just measure 3 cm from the next mark along. Making sure the signatures remain in the same order will ensure that when you have sewn them together the text block will be neat and the pages aligned. Now the signatures are all together, you can see all the piercings line up ready for sewing. I've threaded a length of waxed thread on my needle and I'm going to start to sew the first signature. Again, we need to keep the signatures in order. Put the needle through the first hole in the signature. Make sure you go through all the sheets of paper. And pull through the thread, leaving a small tail. It's simply a matter of weaving in and out through each hole. This part can be a little awkward when using a curved needle. It's important to keep the thread quite tight. When you're tightening the thread, if you pull it outwards you may tear the paper, so always pull it out to the side. When you've gone through the last hole, you need to work your way back up in the opposite direction. The reason we use waxed thread is it's less likely to tangle. tie a square knot at the end to secure the thread, and that's the first signature sewn. The second signature is slightly different. Again, keeping the signatures in order, we're going to put the needle through the first hole and out of the second. This time we're going to go down through the loop of the previous signature. And back up through the loop at the other side of the hole. And then go back into the hole we've just sewn through. This locks the signatures together. And we're going to repeat that all the way along. All the time you need to make sure that the thread is tight. When you get to the end, thread the needle through the loop below and create a small knot. Take the next signature and start sewing into the first hole. And back out the next. This time, to link it to the previous signature, we're going to go around the stitch of the two signatures below it. So slip the needle in between the two signatures and around the previous stitch. This is where a curved needle comes into its own. And again, go back into the same hole. And repeat all the way along. When you come to a point where you need to tie off the thread, just go through the signature before it and tie a knot, and join another piece of thread on by tying it around the loop of a signature below. When you've finished sewing the signatures, tie off at the end by going between the two signatures below and putting the needle in the loop of the thread and pulling it tight. Cut off the excess thread. The next thing to do is to press the text block and glue the spine. I don't have a book press, so I'm going to be using these two pieces of wood. I'm going to carefully lay the book on the piece of wood with a couple of millimetres of the spine overlapping. and I'm using a couple of hand clamps to clamp it in place. That should give enough pressure to press the book. I'm using regular PVA glue and putting a good amount along the spine. The glue soaks in quite a lot, and so you may need to use more than you think. I like to use my finger to massage in the glue and make sure all of the spine is well covered. If there are any areas that are dry, just add a little more glue. And I'm going to set that aside to dry. After the spine has dried, give it another coating with the PVA glue. It's at this point you can add a ribbon. Cut a length of ribbon a little longer than the book, and pass the ends of the ribbon through a flame to seal them and stop them from fraying. Glue the spine as before, applying a liberal coat of the PVA. Again, massage it in with your finger to ensure a full and even coverage. Add the piece of ribbon to the top of the spine and set aside to dry. With the glue now dry, remove the clamps and take it out of the press. Now prepare the end papers. Take your 2 sheets of the thicker paper and fold in half. Reinforcing the crease with a bone folder. Take 2 pieces of scrap paper and use to cover all but the last 6mm or so of the creased edge, and give that a light even coat of PVA. Apply the end paper to the text block, taking care to line it up accurately. And repeat the process for the other side. Use a thin coat of glue to avoid any warping of the paper. Place the text block back in the press to dry. I'm going to reinforce the spine with a piece of thick paper. This one's cut at 18cm by 10cm. Just fold it around the spine and reinforce the creases at the corner. Add some PVA glue to the spine and place the paper on, making sure it's well stuck down. Take a piece of scrap paper to protect your work surface and add a thin layer of glue on the flap. And smooth it into place with the bond folder. And repeat for the other side. Again, place it back in your press to dry. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please give us a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe for further videos. Thanks for watching.